The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us for today's webinar. Today we'll be discussing the KPIs for a successful recruitment business in 2018. My name is Charlie Roger and I'm the marketing manager here at Bullhorn. And today I'm pleased to be joined by Lisa Jones, who'll be delivering the webinar content. Lisa is the director at BarclayJones. Her business supports recruitment leaders to grow their businesses and improve profitability through effective digital marketing and technology solutions. She works with recruitment, IT, and marketing leaders to improve their systems, engagements, and increase return of investment. We're also joined today by Andy Ingham. Andy is the VP of Sales here at Bullhorn, and he will be getting involved with some specific content from Bullhorn on the use of KPIs. Before we jump into the webinar, there are a few housekeeping points. Today's session will be recorded and we will share the recording with you shortly after the webinar. All of today's content is the intellectual property of Lisa and the team at BarclayJones. So please do not share the recording outside your own businesses, but please feel free to show it to your colleagues. There will be a series of polls throughout the webinar. Please feel free to get involved and answer as many of those as you like, as well as a couple of questions that Lisa will send out during the session. You can answer that in the chat system on the control panel. And finally, the webinar will last approximately 45 minutes. So if you do have any questions, Lisa will do her best to address some of those at the end of the session or engage with you directly after the webinar to answer any questions that we haven't been able to cover. That's enough from me for now, so I'm going to pass things over to Lisa.
Thank you very much, Charlie. That's great. So obviously, yes, I'm delighted to be joined by Andy, who's turned into my beautiful assistant. This is our second webinar that we've run together. And obviously, we're hoping to make this a bit of a habit, the Andy and Lisa show. I don't know, maybe that could be a good spin-off.
Good afternoon, Lisa.
Brilliant stuff. So the goals for the webinar today, obviously just to generate some, I suppose, some thought leadership, whatever you want to call it really, but ultimately to give something back. So both Andy and I work with recruiters and have done for probably, I was about to say too long, but it can never be too long. Every day's different. Ultimately, BarclayJones, though, we deliver three facets. We help recruiters be more successful generally, but we certainly work with recruiters on their training. So we ensure ROI from everything that recruiters do with technology. We look at the technology they're using and advise them on best practice. And we also work with their marketers of all levels to generate award-winning departments that generate leads and candidates. The 3 C's, all good stuff. Before we start, or properly start, we need some information about you lovely people, though. I want to know who you are. So can you grab your lovely mice, please, and tell me who you are, please. So just pop into your little chat facility and tell me who you are. Just see, are you a marketeer? Are you a recruiter, etc.? So we're getting some answers here. Recruiter with an exclamation mark. Interesting, like you really are a recruiter. Recruitment director, finance manager, MD of a recruitment company. Lovely. Systems development, lovely. An owner of a particular business, aware of all hats. Absolutely. And if I was going to say Wurzel Gummidge, I'm going to prove my age here. Andy knows what I'm talking about, though, although he is only 25. He's just been looking at all the retro stuff on Netflix. Brilliant. So we've got lots of marketeers. We've even got a marketeer as well, which always makes me laugh because it's one of those words that's quite difficult to spell. But anyway. Hi, Lisa. Just an IT guy. Phil, don't even go there. We've had this discussion before. Just. Someone's just called me Aunt Sally. Do you know what? On some days when I've put my makeup on, I look like that, actually, when I've not got a mirror in front of me anyway. Right, let's move forward. Thank you very much. And obviously that helps us test as well where you are from a chat facility, because keep the questions coming in and we'll do absolutely everything we can to keep you guys happy today. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the session quite fluid. Andy's going to interject whenever he likes. But what I want to find out from you is what your views are on KPIs. Now, you've actually got a poll that's popping up on your screen momentarily. I want you to click on that poll and give me your views on key performance indicators. Believe it or not, I've actually got a task this week of coming up with some different descriptors for KPI. Kickboxing is one of them, for example. K, quite a difficult word to find other things too. So far, we're getting too rigid to manage people with. Actually, most of you, and it would make sense, because those of you who think that KPIs are pants are probably not on this session, although maybe you're a bit agnostic and you're worried about whether or not you should have them. What's all the fuss about? So if I just share that particular piece now, and you'll see what the answer to that is coming through. And we're going to use this, that we're not necessarily going to use your names when we're publishing content, but it's really useful to us to know how all of this stuff works. Right, lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. Fantastic. Okay, moving forward. The next question I've got for you, and it's more of, again, we're not going to be reading stuff out here, but I'm interested, which CRM system do you have right now? Because we're going to talk a lot about how systems can drive KPIs. So just pop into your chat facility and tell me which which computing system you use, which candidate or client relationship management database you have right now in your business. And you're all typing like the clappers. That's lovely. I'm not going to necessarily read any of these out. So, although someone's just put the word Excel in, and I'm just going to frown at that. Brilliant. Lovely. Someone's just typed in Microdeck. Is this the chat facility? Yes, it is. You're in the right place. Right. That's for my benefit and no one else's, so I'm not going to share that. Thank you very much, everyone. Now, for those of you who know BarclayJones, you'll know that we talk a lot about CRM first. We've been talking about it for a couple of years now. The founders of the business are both ex-IT directors in recruitment. And the stuff we're talking about, we've always talked about, which is if your CRM and your data is at the heart, it's the beating heart of your business, not the, I don't know, cholesterol, veined riddle system, but it's actually super speedy, keeps you going, look after it kind of thing, then CRM first has to be for you. And if anything, the advent of LinkedIn Recruiter and GDPR has made our approach to CRM first even more critical. If you want to know more about CRM first and you want to listen to the lovely Andy and myself from a few months ago talking about how to make your CRM your first port of call, make it your client's first port of call, your candidate's first port of call, i.e. you, their first port of call, then put the word CRM into your chat and we'll send you a link to the webinar. You can just listen to that in the background. Fantastic. My next question is, are you GDPR ready? Give me a yes or a no. I'm not going to, again, share your information with anyone else. I'm just taking the temperature of the room. Got some almost and on our way, 90% almost. And I think the challenge is I'm asking a very black and white question. The challenge I sometimes get is I'm kind of ready if I think I understand it properly. Or yes, I'm ready if I should have deleted everything and got my lawyers to write loads of Latin on my website. But actually, is that the goal? Or is the goal just to run your business properly with loads of engaged candidates and clients that really need you to stay on their radar and vice versa? I would say that most recruiters I am speaking to probably don't have the right messaging yet, a little bit scared about their data, and there's a lot of myths around GDPR. Now, myself and Andy are not GDPR experts in terms of lawyers, and neither is Bullhorn or BarclayJones. The way we're positioning ourselves is trying to help our clients do right. But we do, or rather BarclayJones does have a webinar specifically around GDPR with lots of really practical advice. And what we're doing with our clients is running workshops to get them really focused on, in other words, stop attending all these flipping seminars and start doing something for your business, which is really around high quality data and how to get there, and high quality marketing with ROI-led content and how to get your candidates and clients going, don't delete me from your database, I want to stay with you. And of course, Bullhorn would subscribe to that as well, because without your data, they're nothing too. So let's have a think about that. So pop GDPR into your chat if you need that. Now let's quickly talk about the history of KPIs, because interestingly, and if you've ever been on a webinar with myself, you know I kind of get into the muscle of things, and KPIs have been around for a very long time. I'm starting with the 1800s because I don't think any of you care about the Chinese and 3,000 years ago when they started measuring the effectiveness of the Chinese dynasty. I'll let you figure that out for yourself, but I got into the muscle of that last week. But what was interesting, and some of you are kind of doing this just without the blocks of wood, that silent monitors were created. That's what a KPI is, a silent monitor. Cubes of wood with different colors painted on each visible side. So basically a guy that ran a business basically used to put cubes of wood on your desk according to how effective you were, which I thought was quite interesting. Now we have whiteboards, sticks, carrots, that kind of stuff, or even sharp carrots, as I saw on the web this morning. So that's something for you to think about, a bit of history for you there. The next thing that happened with KPIs, according to my history sessions, and I'm a history graduate, so I love doing this stuff, is that during the World War, all the different world wars and other kinds of wars in the early 1900s, the military and public administration decided to measure the effectiveness of the inventory and the systems and processes they were spending money on. So that's when the next thing came along, and that might give you an idea about why we have KPIs in business now, the art of war or business or whatever. And then in the 1990s, all of those lovely industrial psychologists and HR bods decided that performance management was the future. And that's where really KPIs were really born from a recruitment perspective. We want to self-assess, or interestingly, I must stress, a lot of the time when I go into businesses, KPIs are not built for self-assessment. They're used by managers to assess or inflict on their staff. And I'm a big fan of, actually, does the average recruitment consultant actually know the cost of the hires that they make? Do they know how much ROI they're generating from their marketing or IT teams? And any marketeers will be face palming themselves right now because they know that I work with them to say, like, what are you actually delivering to your salespeople? Are you actually allowed to do that? Is that expected? But self-assessment, I'm not convinced I see enough self-assessment going on in recruitment. So that might be something else to think about. Now, in 2017, towards the end of last year, we were seeing that KPIs are a nightmare for some recruiters and absolutely critical for others. So the question I always ask, and I know that Bullhorn always asks when it goes on site, is like, what are your success factors? How do you know you're doing well? And if I use the word KPI, I often get cringes from people saying, no, we don't need KPIs. We don't want to imagine ourselves through KPIs. And other businesses saying, well, without them, we're nothing. Andy, do you have anything to add to that? Because I think you've come on the line.
Yeah, I love that you're calling KPIs sexy there, which is phenomenal. I think just to take this one step further, and I think you have a question coming up to the audience soon anyway. But as you'd expect, Bullhorn is a highly data-driven business, and actually our leadership internally has got access to numerous amounts of business data and metrics. But when we think of KPIs, we think about the behavior we want to drive, and so like the behavior across whether it's our sales team or our operational teams. So the first question really in my mind when we're kind of setting certainly our sales KPIs for the year forward is, what behavior are we looking to try and drive? And keeping it simple, we always focus on around 3 to 5 KPIs, and we have 3 themes, if you will, for 2018. And they evolve around client satisfaction. That's always front of mind for us. And if I put that into business context from Bullhorn's perspective, that really means revenue retention. Thinking about how we grow the pipeline, so the collaboration between sales and marketing. It was good there that you just mentioned the marketeers on the call there, Lisa, and so like growth of new opportunities into our pipeline moving forward. And then our win rate. So, focusing on how we reduce sales time spent on opportunities that, that we don't believe we can win. So a big qualification piece around that, but also focusing on competitive wins. So like driving a sales cycle that delivers value to our prospects, and ultimately avoids that no decision. So, in order to reinforce the behavior we're looking for through KPIs, we also link that to our remuneration plans, or an element of the remuneration plans for our sales teams as well. So kind of 3 themes there that we're looking towards as we set our KPIs for 2018.
Lovely stuff. And I do think it's interesting because when I speak to different tech companies and how they are KPI'd, Andy, I think the recruitment world has got some interesting thoughts to have about that in terms of could they follow the lead on that. So I'm speaking to another tech company. They're not a CRM company, but they are in the recruitment space, and one of their KPIs KPIs is the amount of warm calls they're making for the sake of it, just to keep people focused on buying from them, as opposed to just selling, if that makes sense. So there's things like that, and they're targeted with that, and they're targeted with creating content around that. So, you know, the world is changing, and that's what I think why we've decided to run this webinar with you, is to say, look, now's the time to maybe engage with KPIs in maybe a slightly different way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I've got a question for the audience to go into their chat facilities again. Which KPIs would you say are your most effective ones? Which ones are the ones that people love using, that you can drive your data with, that they actually deliver? Which are the most effective? Can you pop into your chat facility what you've got going on here? And again, we will publish this anonymously outside of the session. We've obviously got things like reward-driven revenue, lead generation, clean data, use of systems, CRM updating, fill rates, interviews, all that lovely stuff. Fantastic. Keep going with that. We'll compile it outside of this session for you as well. Now, I've got a view on this, and this is based on all of the recruitment businesses that I've worked with over the last decade, 2 decades, but I'm often seeing business deliverables around what the business wants, not what it needs. And if I know anything about running a business, and all the businesses that I've seen and what I've learned from all of these people who are very inspiring, is if you can sometimes dump what you want and focus on what you need, it makes things so much simpler. And so what I want to talk to you about initially is KPIs that are what I call want KPIs. And I see this a lot because I work with a lot of IT and marketing teams within recruitment who are expected or not expected to generate often lead generative data, tasks, candidates, all that lovely stuff. So I get marketers who are tasked with building a massive community. Well, the bank manager's not going to care about that. Lots of data, again, the bank manager's not going to care about that. And neither is someone that's going to buy your business in 5 or 6 years' time, because everyone's planning to sell in 2020 anyway. Your beautiful brand, is the logo gorgeous? Do people understand what you do? Again, does the bank manager care about any of this stuff? And I always look at efficiency and effectiveness as being very, very different things, because do we really want almost like a monkey on your CRM just pressing buttons all day, or do they need to press the right buttons at the right time to make the right phone calls? Are your recruiters paralyzed with systems that they can't actually do any sourcing or attracting? And what's your turnover like? And obviously, if you're in the contract business, you'll know that turnover is vanity. It's the profit thing that we really, really care about. And then I work with clients on their need KPIs. So you don't just want a massive community, you want an engaged one. Do you really need 100,000 people following you on LinkedIn? Or do you need 1,000 people actively engaging with you that show their faces every now and again, and that allows you to generate really warm calls? Do you need a mail shot database of 4,000, I don't know, quantity surveyors? Or do you just need a couple of hundred that when you mail them, you can see what they're clicking on and you can call them as a result of that? So we need relevant information, not just loads of data. We need a recognized and respected brand, one that's beholden to you, because that is going to make you GDPR proof. We need effective recruiters that are able to deliver profit-related business, not just loads of figures on a whiteboard that might fall out by the end of the month. We need attraction strategies, not just loads of bits of kit that we think they're using well, but when I do my discoveries, I'm finding that no one's really shown them what to do. And actually, no one's really logging the source of registration anyway. And every marketeer in the room knows that any source that begins with A on the drop-down list in Bullhorn is probably more likely to attract a candidate. They'll know where I'm coming from. And we obviously need a KPI, which is sustainable profit, which again always disappoints me, because the average recruiter doesn't know how much money they're spending on generating a placement. And I personally think systems should be able to tell us that. And one of the things that Andy's going to do later on in the webinar is to talk to you about how Bullhorn measures effectiveness. So the lovely Greg Savage, give me a Greg on your chat facility if you're a Greg fan. I'm almost like his groupie, and I'm regularly reading his stuff. So a big shout out to Greg. Now, he's not the only one that talks about revenue being vanity. Lots of very intelligent people out there do, and I'm getting lots of Gregs hitting me right now, which is good. I definitely talk about vanity versus sanity, and I'm going to the marketing and recruitment conference at the beginning of March specifically to talk about vanity versus sanity scores, and looking at how marketeers and recruitment businesses need to drive the sanity piece. But obviously, this is a well-worn quote. Obviously, we love Greg. Someone else that I work very closely with once said to me, Lisa, processes are run by systems and systems are run by people. But often what I find is there's no real clarity around who or what runs the people. We set these KPIs up, we complain when they're not fulfilled, Or maybe we say KPIs are not the way to manage people. We let people self-manage, but then we still don't really give them a routine or a structure to make them profitable. But profit is the ultimate sanity score, so we need to think about this. So I'm a big fan of getting practical around KPIs. And being practical around key performance indicators is to understand what our performance needs to fix. And going back to what Andy said before is, what behaviors do we want to change in 2018? What do we want to debug from our business? So could you please tell me in your chat facility what problems you think need fixing this year? And this is definitely going to be one of those webinars that gets you thinking. We're not just going to be delivering content at you. We want you to leave here with something practical for your business. Time out of the business, on the business. So what problems need fixing this year? And again, I'm not going to read people's names out, but I am going to list some stuff. So we've got staff apathy. People need to understand how critical KPIs are to getting your business where it needs to be. Lazy recruiters. That's a very unposh way of saying staff apathy, like it. Focus on business development, ROI marketing spend, email marketing and email recruitment, consistent billing, absolutely. Attitude, aptitude, effective leadership, accurate, timely and meaningful data, lack of candidates billing. Goodness me, you've all got some interesting problems to fix this year. And if you're anything like me, just typing it up will get you a bit, how do I do this? What am I doing about this? And I'm hoping that some of the tips we give you on the webinar today will get you really focused on that. Brilliant. Lovely. Lots of stuff coming through. We'll publish that outside of the webinar and again, anonymously. Now, what I see, and I know Andy can jump in whenever he likes on this, but there are 4 key things that I feel need fixing this year. And clearly this is not an exhaustive list, but GDPR is definitely something. Now, I don't see GDPR as a problem. I see it as an opportunity. And I'm not just putting a silver lining on things because I'm a positive creature. GDPR for me is not about compliance. It's about common sense and business practice that's going to drive profit. So have we left our messaging to the lawyers? Have we left our data to the IT bots? Or are we saying that the data that we have on our system needs to be relevant, it needs to be engaged with, it needs to make us money? Of course it does. Are we saying that we want to become compliant in order to make money? Of course we are. Are we making sure that everything that we send out from this point onwards is designed to lure people back home, get them to sign up to us so that we're safe? Of course we are. Are we making sure that our content plans are not just aimed at the 20 something of May this year, but building a sustainable business that we can straighten our backs to when we're in a sales meeting with a client and say, we have something that you don't have, which is relevant information on our sector and not just a list of candidates that we've not managed to get unsubscribed yet. So think about that from a GDPR perspective. We want effective recruiters, AKA get rid of the apathy, make them more effective, make them more efficient, get them using systems better, get them taking responsibility and accountability for their desks, not blaming systems when they're not making money, working more effectively with marketeers to research their markets and to really, really target them, being profitable. Do we want to reduce the spend on peripheral technologies? Are we going to make CRM our first port of call? I'm not suggesting we ban everything else. LinkedIn is still a critical bit of kit. But what else are we using that's actually diluting our processes, that's making our data invisible and difficult to track, that's giving our recruiters excuses for being paralyzed at the desk that they can't pick the phone up? And are we using our marketeers effectively? So I was with a fantastic industrial temp recruiter last week, talking about how I'm working with their marketing team to generate more traction from their database. And they looked at me because they didn't even know that was feasible. They're 360 recruiters that think they need to do everything themselves. The marketeers sat there going, I've just generated 2 places in the last 2 weeks worth 30 grand. And people are shocked. And I'm like, that should be the norm, but it isn't. So is 2018 the year of marketing and sales becoming, a less paralyzed and more cohesive function? Andy, from your perspective, is there anything else that recruiters might need to be fixing in 2018? Anything else that's jumping out at you?
It's kind of interesting because thinking about issues to solve for 2018, a growing theme or a growing trend that I'm kind of hearing in the market is around data quality. So kind of linking your third point there around obviously your mantra with CRM first into like almost from a KPI perspective. But the old adage of high quality data is super important. Kind of missing fields or poor data within whatever CRM you're using is going to have 2 unintended consequences around not being able to make data-based decisions or kind of review any measurements you choose to put in place as business leaders. but also thinking about that at a desk level, then again, candidates are not going to be returned on relevant searches, which obviously lowers the overall efficiency of the business. So it's interesting how, you know, there's a growing theme there in terms of the conversations I'm having around, you know, point in hand around KPIs and KPI measurements, but actually bringing that CRM piece in and data quality becoming more relevant in organizations.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so moving forward, KPIs are all about the numbers. So I often get asked by clients, how many should I have? How long should I have them for? And what are the magic numbers? And the research that we've done is every recruiter seems to have between 1 and 20 KPIs. So there's no manual out there that says how many you should need. I also think as well that often what happens is we're not reviewing our KPIs in relation to the strategy of the business. And if you go with what Andy and I are suggesting, that key performance indicators are there to drive behaviors as well as numbers, and obviously the behaviors drive the numbers, then should they be permanent? You know, what are we trying to do in 2018 that's different to 2017? Have we looked at the formula for a successful recruiter in the business? Should every recruiter have the same magical number? And often what happens is, because we are very light in management time, we're not light in managers, because often recruitment businesses have lots of managers. They just don't have enough management time, and they often feel like they don't have enough management systems. And again, Andy will blow a hole in that myth. But what often happens is we have a one size fits all cliche that we inflict on recruitment businesses. And as a result of that, and because we don't have time to strategize enough, we have KPIs that potentially maybe not fit for purpose. It's a little similar to the average job advert being not fit for purpose, but we still write it, because we're still going on the training we had 20 years ago when the Sunday Times was the best format. And now we've got all this digital stuff that needs to be SEO and human led, but we've still not changed because we don't have enough time to get off our bike and look at the scenery. So we'll have a chat about that. Now, there's lots of KPIs that are going to pop up in this webinar, and we don't have the magical answer for you today. We're just giving you an hour of our time for you to go away and think, right, what could I do differently this year? But we are going to give you some that we've seen, and we want you to grab 5 or 6 or whatever and say, right, I'm actually going to try these, and I'm going to use systems to measure them. Now, the research that I've done is, and it's varied according to what you see along the web, that KPIs are there to create effective habits. That's what a KPI is to develop an effective habit that you can measure. We want our recruiters to be more effective, which means we want them to deliver a recipe, not just a list of ingredients. And what it tells us, what the web tells us, is that the average person, the web tells us, takes around 21 days to form a habit. And obviously, if you look at that in working days, you're looking at around a month. But if I'm honest, there's a load of research out there that says sometimes triple that, and often it takes a year. Now, I would say this. When I work with businesses, I say to them, let's choose one behavior that we want to radically change, and let's sit on it from a very large height. And what I'm saying is, let's say, for example, we want to improve the way we write our job adverts, or we want to improve the number of warm calls that we make next month. Then let's make that the language that we speak in everything that we do. Let's make sure our internal comms are focused on that one KPI and driving it. Let's make sure our systems and processes are set up to listen to that activity. Let's make sure that when I'm standing there pouring water from the water cooler machine, that the messaging is, Lisa, how many warm calls have you made today? Were they effective? Have you logged them on Bullhorn? I've got some clients that if I went to the loo and shut the door, the back of the toilet door would have that KPI screaming at me. And I think personally, if you really had a strong internal culture and comms process, you would be able to change that model within a month. It's when you don't have that it takes between 66 and 365 days, because you tell someone you want someone to do something and then they don't do it. And that is not good enough. I want you to think about what's called the 70-20-10 rule. And we have talked about this on other webinars. The 10% rule is you send someone on a training course and they do what you've asked them to do, or maybe they don't. But 10% of what they do back at their desk is achieved from the course that you send them on. You send them on. The next 20% is when the managers get involved and the messaging that they get when they get back to their desk. I want you to ask yourself, when you send someone on a course or you have a meeting with them, do you make it clear what the objective of that meeting / course is prior? Do you tell them when they get back to their desks that you're expecting them to deliver back to you what they've learned and how they're going to change? And do you have that meeting afterwards and get them to commit and take accountability for the billable time they've spent away from their desks? If you want any more information on the 70-20-10 rule, pop 70 in your drop down and I'll send that to you or into your chat. But think about the final 70% of the time or things that people do is around everything they see when they get back to their desk. And are you sure that the 10 and the 20 are being followed up every day by every department and by your KPIs? So if you send them on a GDPR course, if you send them on a bullhorn training session, are they being KPI'd for the next 30 days on delivering their learning? Or do you just assume because they've got a manual, they're going to read it when they get back? Trust me, it doesn't happen. I've been in training for 25 plus years now. And often what happens is they are energized to hell when they leave the room. And by the time they get back to their desk, it's kind of petered away and the managers don't know what they've learned. So there's no accountability. So really think about that. I want you to get focused on the 4 C's from a KPI perspective, because you're all thinking, what KPIs do I need to set this year? Your KPIs, if they're set around these 4 key factors, are going to drive your business forward. So what KPIs do you need to set for your recruiters, your IT people, your marketeers to help them generate interested candidates and keep them? The same for clients and the same for consultants. And I'm talking about this at the Rec Expo on Wednesday if you've got time to come. And ultimately, the sanity piece, the reality piece, which is cash. We often focus our KPIs around cash. We need to think about the 4 C's, not just the cash piece. Often what marketeers are targeted on is content, which is another C, but I don't see that as a driver. That's just part of the journey. We want you to improve your data, improve your journey, improve retention, and ultimately improve sales. Because KPIs need to be about relationships. They need to be about data, not, less data, more information. So less records and more information within those records to help us drive the business forward. Again, can we use systems to drive objectivity, not just subjectivity? Because subjectivity is often, I've made loads of money this month. Objectivity is, but how much of that is profit? And ultimately, our processes driving that profit.
Hey, Lisa, can I jump in there?
Go for it. Yeah.
Interesting position there, and I think kind of the change of landscape in terms of how you try to present, focus around the 4 C's could be super beneficial when people are looking at setting KPIs for 2018. Just to digress slightly and maybe just give a little bit of market positioning on this. So Bullhorn run an annual UK recruitment trends report, and we've just published our trends report for 2018. I think later in the webinar, people have the ability to obtain that if they can. So we've run the survey this year across just over 1,400 recruitment professionals, and it kind of covers agencies of all sizes and all sectors. And in the report at a top level, we kind of look at what the top priorities for the coming year are across the agency market. And the big 3 prevail again this year, as they have done in subsequent years, around revenue, around profitability, and around candidate attraction. But we specifically asked about what KPIs and what metrics so like the leaders in the businesses are using to drive to drive behavior or to drive their overall business strategy for 2018. And the results are interesting in the context of viewing these against the 4 C's as you laid them out there, and also the point that we see on the slide now in terms of it's the processes that drive the profit. So maybe there's an angle here that's suggesting KPIs should actually support the processes and not necessarily the outcome, because that's how we drive the right behavior. But just to give everyone on the webinar a flavour for what came out of the trend report, when we asked the question in terms of what the top metrics that are used from a KPI perspective, number 1 was fill rate. So 63% of respondents placed that in their top 3. Second place was hit rate at 49%, and then we had a joint tie for third place around client satisfaction and an interview to hire. And interestingly, this is where I think you get that convergence really of the conversations. Those are all ultimate outcomes and not looking to drive processes that actually drive the profitable behavior. I think the other thing that we noticed inside the trends report, certainly for 2018 versus last year, is that last year client satisfaction was actually the top KPI with 64% of respondents placing it in their top 3, and that kind of dropped down to third place across the marketplace here.
Very interesting stuff. I would suggest that if you want access to this report, everyone, could you put the word trends into your chat facility, and the lovely Bullhorn team will get that sent out to you. Some fantastic stuff. Because a lot of you are going to have to take this knowledge back to base. Fantastic. Thank you for that, Andy. Now, get on the phone is often what we hear, and certainly in my younger days, recruiters had 100 to 200 calls to make per day. Do any of you have targets around getting on the phone? Give me the number of calls you need to make in a given day, please, just while I walk through this slide. The great thing about obviously getting on the phone is it's a relatively GDPR-proof process, which is obviously music to a recruitment leader's ears, because obviously we're not necessarily spamming and stuff. Obviously, if people have asked us not to call them, we need evidence to suggest that that's on the system. But it is an interesting concept that GDPR might drive the recruitment world to make more phone calls. And we know that phone calls are the things that drive relationships. But also what I know when I hear recruiters speaking is, and this is just my opinion for what it's worth, they're asked to make the wrong kind of calls. Now, I'm making a statement that we will all probably go, yeah, obvious statement. I was with an education recruiter a couple of weeks ago, and they admitted that their 360 recruiters need to make all of the phone calls, you know, even keeping candidates warm that they couldn't really place 6 months ago. My view is this: marketeers are there to do that. I'm not suggesting the marketeers pick the phone up. You might want to make a decision in your business that you only speak to people that you can convert in the next 4 working weeks or 5 working days. You choose a number and you live and die by it. The rest of the data, it's up to marketing and the KPIs that they're set to drive the nurturing program for that. So a marketeer's job is to nurture the hell out of your database and convert them into people that you can convert within the next 5 working days or 4 working weeks. So think about that. Think about what the phone call actually means, people. And it might be the KPI for this year is not just making phone calls, but phoning people that you can convert within a certain amount of time and ignoring the rest in favor of the marketeer taking the strain. Something for you to think about. Your marketeer is not just there to color stuff in and send mail shots. They're there to deliver great stuff. So have a think about that. Now, what we also don't want to do is create a GDPR nightmare for people. And what I do think that every recruiter, every recruitment leader, every divisional manager, every marketeer needs to do is to create legitimate interests. Now, again, we're not going to go into the labyrinth of GDPR, but I would say to you that you have a number of different ways by which you can keep data on your system, i.e. process it. One of them is getting consent, but that is not the only way. The other way is to create legitimate interest. And with the KPIs that you set for 2018, could you drive behaviors, as Andy keeps saying, around creating legitimate interest? In other words, could you do something with your content, your adverts, your phone calls, your email marketing to generate legitimate interest so you don't have to completely decimate your database? Something for you to think about. Because ultimately, if you create a CRM first and a strategy and a set of effective KPIs, could this be your antidote to GDPR? GDPR is not a bad thing. It's just a little disruption in the market. Sometimes disruptions are really good because they send you down the right track. I'm working with lots of recruiters that are saying, hold on a minute, Lise, CRM first and GDPR are the way that I want to run my business. And the government, and I'm really spinning this now, are giving me a reason to do this properly. Thank you, European Union. Let's not forget, just because we're coming out of Brexit, or brackets are we, doesn't mean that we don't have to be GDPR compliant. This is a worldwide legislation that affects data that's held within the European economic area, and we're still going to be part of that post-Brexit. So something I want you to think about from a KPIs perspective is maybe your database needs to have a KPI. I'm a big fan of this. If your IT systems were people, how could you KPI them? Let's look at your data. And I know this is very close to Bullhorn's heart as well, so they can interject whenever they like. I think you've got too much data in your businesses. And I'm not, by the way, saying you need to delete loads of it, but I am saying you need to segment it in order for you to find it. If I said to you, there's a mountain over there, start at the top, there's gold in those hills, we'd start at the top and we'd work our way down. But at some point, I'm going to say, dig up, stupid. You've already found it. You just didn't see it because there was so much of it. So I segment my clients' data into 4 layers from a marketing and an IT systems perspective. 1, tomorrow's data. It's not with you yet. Are you ready for it? Is it going to be GDPR compliant? Are they going to love you for taking their data and putting it on their systems? Are they going to love the content you're sending to them? Because let's face it, at the moment, most recruiters just talk about themselves all day long. But are you talking about IT? Are you talking about finance? Are you talking about accountancy? Are you talking about legislation? Or are you just talking about jobs? The next layer is the people that you've actively engaged with. Hi, John, how are you? They'll say when you ring them, as opposed to private number. Who is this? So have a think about the people that you've already actively engaged with. They should already be on your side, and that should be data that you should be saying, you know, a key performance indicator of my database, of my marketing systems is that I've got this much interest in my business. Then we're looking at yesterday's data. So the people that applied to your company yesterday or that you spoke to yesterday, and again, define what yesterday means, recruiters. Is it literally the last 24 hours? Let's hope not. Or is it the last 6 months, the last year, the last 2 years? Think about what data is on your system that you've touched, that touched you, that you could viably contact and speak to, and therefore be KPI'd on. And then level 4, this is where you need to start digging upwards because you've hit your gold, you just didn't see it. And actually now what you're doing is it's wood for trees time. You can't find anything, too much data, not enough information, 30 years worth of data, 20 years worth of data, where you probably migrated a load of stuff that you shouldn't have. You've probably been extracting stuff from LinkedIn, which you shouldn't have. These people have never heard of you. They've never given you permission to store their data. They've never had a legitimate interest in you and vice versa. And there's an argument to say that's the data that your marketing and your IT teams need to be tackling on your behalf. They need to prod it to see if it screams and then leave it alone and get rid. Or they need to prod it and wake it up and put it into yesterday's or place it invoiced. So please have a think about that because ultimately you've got all of these layers of data and that will help you with your KPIs. Now, I did promise to list some KPIs that the leaders of our industry are talking about, and I've got some of my clients in here, as well as some of the people that are inspiring to me. And they often focus on the older, the more traditional KPIs. But what I'm liking about Greg Savage is he's focusing on conversion rates and hit rates, not just the amount of data that you're compiling. Anne's very focused on the beginning of your processes, not just the end, which I really like. We've also got people who are famous for either being CEOs of decent sized businesses and or people that nurture those businesses and help them grow. So we're looking at, again, the beginning of the relationships or maybe even the middle. And then John Rose, very, very personable guy within our industry, has run some significant recruitment businesses like S3, etc. And again, he's on about meetings. I've got other clients who say to me, I'm an interim recruiter, and if my staff are in the office over August and they're not meeting clients, I kick them out, because I've got to be pulling the lever and making sure they're driving more activity. So really have a think about those key performance indicators, how you can measure them, what's relevant to your business from a pure recruitment consultant perspective. Now I'm going to hand over to Andy because he's going to talk to you now about some of the things that Bullhorn can do to help you measure more effectively the KPIs that you should be setting your business. Over to you, Andy.
Hey, thanks, Lisa. So I mentioned earlier on the webinar that we think of KPIs as being the enabler for driving behavior across the organization. And regardless of which KPIs the individual agencies leadership decides to focus on, if you're unable to report effectively against that KPI, it's we have to do reality here. It's kind of largely redundant. So this is fundamentally why I see reporting of data across your CRM, and that's kind of regardless of which CRM front office technology you use, as the critical business application when it comes to KPI management. So you can see on the slide there how Bullhorn approach measurements of KPIs to reporting throughout the application, and we very much take a layered report. And I'll talk to each of these layers, but then we're going to go a little bit deeper, and I'll show you some examples of these on the preceding slides. So at a very basic level, we have list views. So list views, you're kind of seeing bottom left on your screen there. And list views are actually utilized throughout the Bullhorn application. And I kind of think of list views as being Excel on steroids. They're easy to run, they're fully configurable, they're personable at a desk level. So individuals can really interact with the list views and kind of focus on the things that they care about. And most importantly, see the data presented to them in a meaningful way. Our next layer would be our dashboard cards. And if we kind of move forward with the slides there, Lisa. So you see some examples here of activity goals and quotas. So dashboard cards, again, we're kind of focusing across the organization. So these can be utilized at a desk level, at a manager level, at a director level, and at an executive level, because they're all fully configurable and personalized to the view of the data that wants to be seen and therefore reported, measured, and tracked against. So you see here how activity goals and quotas can be placed into the system, and then real-time measurements can come out of that. As well as presenting, if we move on to the next slide, Lisa, sorry, as well as presenting proactive insights on the next action to take in order to support KPI achievements. So all these dashboards are kind of tracking information and activity real-time, and then presenting back to the individuals, not just a snapshot or even a real-time view of how they're performing against the business metrics the individual organization wants to drive, but also the next likely proactive action to take in order to support a higher probability of achieving that objective. The next layer we have in the application are standard reports. I think regardless of the CRM that you're utilizing, you'll probably see that against all front office technologies there. So it's we kind of consider that an out-of-the-box set of common recruitment, sales, and business reporting that are pulled right across your individual database. And then if we move on to the next slide there, Lisa, we kind of move on to what we call Canvas, which is a very rich and deep business analytics tool, which enables the individuals within the organization to report across any entity within the database. So we don't usually see this type of reporting used at a desk or even manager level. This is for business-orientated reportings because it's a very rich and deep tool itself. But with the final slide here, Lisa, I kind of want to jump back to a point you made earlier around hitting the phones, I think was the phrase you used. And for me, the question here is, okay, that is an absolute basic activity that we're looking to drive across the sector. But how can technology help drive recruiter productivity in this space? So Bullhorn have embedded with the application Bullhorn Pulse. And you've seen some screenshots here from the Bullhorn Pulse technology, which essentially mines your individual agency's data and presents recruiters with data-driven information and actions around next steps to take. So some of the information that's presented back at the desk level is the best time to call an individual based on all your previous history and engagements that you've had with that person. Who is your most engaged contact within one of your client relationships, which you can utilize obviously to generate additional business. And conversely, contacts that you have within the organization is a great way to see that you're not engaged with the person as well. So the reverse is absolutely true, which enables you to obviously drive more proactive behavior in that direction. And then through full email tracking and flagged emails being surfaced also in a dashboard card, as important information hits your inbox, which we all live in the real world, that's so easy for it to get buried. That can be surfaced in one of the Pulse dashboard cards so that it becomes actionable instantly, because that could be business development opportunities that are sitting there. So as I kind of take a step back from Bullhorn, I definitely would challenge any recruitment leader out there who recognizes the value in focusing on KPIs to also assess the accessibility of their data within the CRM. Is KPI measurement routine, or is it actually labor intensive? Are KPI reports delivered into your inbox on a Monday morning, ready for your team briefings or your management sessions? Or actually, is it someone's part-time job to spend 2 or 3 hours on a Monday morning compiling the data, getting ready for the various meetings that take place? And so that's why through Pulse and through our dashboard cards, and even through the the deep, so like delivered reporting through the Canvas product suite, then we look to again, Lisa and I talk about the effective versus efficient, but certainly driving effective use of time, reducing or increasing efficiency in order of getting those reports where you want them, so you've got that actionable data to really measure and act on the KPIs that you're tracking.
Fantastic stuff. Now, what I want you to do, and again, we're not going to share this information, but for those of you who are Bullhorn users, give me a yes if you're already using some of these systems, and or just give us some feedback on whether or not these systems are working well for you. And basically, I'm quite excited about the fact that I can actually track relationships, etc., through this, because that's the thing that we're going to be measured on as recruiters as the years go on. That's our USP ultimately, isn't it? So we're getting a lot of people saying Pulse is great, fantastic. Some of you saying, oh, Alan, I spotted you the other day. That's all good. I spotted you at AppsCo. Hello. So people progressing onto dashboards. They want some more information on it. All of that really good stuff. So we'll obviously let Bullhorn interact with you on a separate level with that. Seriously, in all of my years of technology, which we're looking at plus 20 now, it's never been easier to measure the effectiveness of your teams. You've got the systems, it's just sometimes you don't have the time. And maybe because you're doing stuff that you don't need to do anymore. We have an approach in our business called DAD. So we look at our processes and we say, right, can we delete that process? Do we need to do it anymore? And if we can't delete it, which is the D, the next level down is automate. Can we automate? So that's the A of the DAD. If we can't automate it, does that mean we just need to get on and do it? That's another D. Or could we delegate it? Another D. And if we can't do any of those things, get rid anyway. So have a think about maybe looking at some of your KPIs. You might need to DAD them, and we're going to be creating some content on that soon. But you've got some fantastic tools from Bullhorn there that you can use to basically simplify the measurement of what your teams are doing. All right, lovely. Thank you for that. I want you to think about your strategies for this year. So today was about exposing the typical kinds of KPIs that you can have. You've all got different businesses, you've all got different goals. Your job today is to look at what we've told you and then be creative with this year. And don't repeat 2017 if it wasn't a great year for you. Making money might be a goal, making profit is the ultimate goal. So if you look at your data and tech, focus on it. Is it delivering what you need it to be doing? And are the processes that you're delivering bug-free? Or is the ultimate bug the people and the way that they're using it? Flinging a KPI at someone and training them on how to use the system is not enough. You've got to think about the 70-20-10 rule. Think about it. You've told them to do something, and if you've got kids, you know that might not be enough. You might need to kind of like back it up with messaging and rewards, and use the systems that you've got to manage those KPIs and change the behaviors of your workforces so that they are more successful and more effective in 2018. Now I'm going to ask you, what are you going to do differently in 2018? Now you've listened to Andy and I, could you please pop into your chat facility? We've gone through a lot of stuff today. Give me some feedback. How have you found the webinar, and what are you going to take away with you? So we've got some people doing some more work around GDPR. Some people going to look at some more systems that will plug into the side of Bullhorn so that they can do more data analytics. Great, we've got some 4 C's converts, brilliant for that. They're going to look at the data that they've got on their systems and make it work harder. They're going to clean it up. They're going to look at setting more robust KPIs. Are any of you going to engage with any of the KPIs that we've shown you today around conversions or relationships? We've got review existing KPIs and make them more relevant to our strategies. Brilliant stuff. CRM first, absolutely. Simplified KPIs. I mean, it's all about the KISS approach to running a business. And I think sometimes with recruitment, what we've done is we've allowed our systems to make it more complex than it needs to be. And ultimately, your system should make it simpler. The stuff that Andy's shown you today should breathe some life into you going away and learning how to use this stuff. Brilliant. And obviously some people are going to Olympia, so we'll all see you there because both Bullhorn and BarclayJones are going to be there. And I'm certainly going to be talking more about the 4 C's as well and how to drive your business with that. Right, so with that in mind, I'm looking at, we've had some questions coming through the webinar, which we'll engage with outside of the webinar, if that's okay. So if any of you want more information on Bullhorn, just type in BH 2018 into your chat facility if you want someone to reach out to you. Equally, if you want our ebook on KPIs, more information on KPIs, the typical kinds of things that you should be setting this year, put the word KPI into your chat facility and we'll send that off to you. If you want to see the video as well, we'll be sending this out to you naturally anyway as part of the marketing for this webinar, so you'll be able to put this in front of your other team members. And I'm going to hand over to Charlie briefly as well to talk to you about Engage for this year.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, some great content there covered. We've had loads of questions, which is going to be a fantastic opportunity to follow up. As Lisa alluded to earlier, we will be at the Recruitment Agency Expo later this week. So if you are attending at Olympia, please feel free to stop by and say hello. But a little bit further into the future, some of you will have maybe attended Bullhorn Live in previous years. This year, Bullhorn Live has evolved, and we are using the same format as we use over in Boston. So for 2018, we are launching the Engage brand. Engage will still have some sort of training tracks for Bullhorn customers, but it will be much more of an industry-specific event. The registration is currently open for that, and the dates there are the 11th and 12th of September. We've also moved location. If you have attended Bullhorn Live previously, we're now down at the London Metropole. And yeah, as I said, the 11th and 12th of September, registration is now open. You can find that at engage.bullhorn.com. If you would like to have a conversation with one of our solution specialists, you're more than welcome to contact us through the website or by giving us a call. And you are also available to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn. You can follow us on Facebook, or you can subscribe to our blog. So yes, thank you very much. Back to you, Lisa.
Lovely, thank you everyone. So in the light of GDPR, we are obviously asking everyone to sign up to our stuff. So we've obviously got a recruitment newsletter, we've got recruitment videos, we've got some fantastic downloads on our website, and we also have a really good Recruitment Leaders podcast as well, all about the typical kinds of stuff. So please access those via our website. Have a fantastic day, what's left of it. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we hope to see you very soon, if not at the Rec Expo on Wednesday/Thursday. Take care, everybody.